A reading from the Gospel according to Mark. On the following day, when they came from Bethany, Jesus was hungry. And seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to see whether perhaps he would find anything on it. But when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. He said to it, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard it. Then they came to Jerusalem and entered the temple and began to drive out those who were selling and those who were buying in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. And he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. He was teaching and saying, "Is it not written, 'My house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations,' but you have made it a den of robbers?" And when the chief priests and the scribes heard it, they kept looking for a way to kill him, for they were afraid of him, because the whole crowd was spellbound by his teaching. And when evening came, Jesus and his disciples went out of the city. In the morning, as they passed by, they saw the fig tree withered away to its roots. And then Peter remembered and said to him, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree that you cursed has withered." And Jesus answered him, "Have faith in God. Truly I tell you, if you say to this mountain, 'Be taken up and thrown into the sea,' and if you do not doubt it in your heart, but believe what you say will come to pass, then it will be done for you. So I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And whenever you stand praying, forgive, if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father in heaven may also forgive you in your trespasses." The word of the Lord. Now, this story is one of I think it is my wife's absolute favorite story in all of the Gospels, because she refers to it as the Jesus hangry story, when Jesus is hungry and angry, and he looks at a fig tree, and because there's no figs on it, he smites the fig tree in his frustration at it, and then stomps off to the temple. And the reason she loves this story, and I think there's merit to this, is because it just perfectly captures both the humanity and the divinity of Jesus in one perfect moment. This moment of somebody who is a human Jesus who would get frustrated at a fig tree for not bearing fruit when it's not even the right season, and just that unreasonable humanness that we have, and to lash out in spite is very human. And yet to also be the same being who can smite a tree with his words is pretty divine. So this one moment captures both the humanity and the divinity of Jesus in a single moment. It goes beyond just that, though. I think it also is great because this story of the fig tree frames what's happening in the temple. Literally, it frames the beginning and the end of the story of the temple. And so the fig tree has something important to do with what Jesus is trying to say is going on in the temple. It could mean a lot of different things. I've heard a lot of different interpretations, but I think one interpretation that's very powerful for me is this idea that Jesus will not stand for something that is not feeding the people. Just as this fig tree is a symbol of it's not feeding us, it's not feeding God's people, and so it is of no use to Jesus. He goes into the temple and he sees this temple is not feeding my people. It's holding them back. They're coming here and they're trading goods and thinking that they can just make these sacrifices on the altar, and then they're good. They don't need to change and be the people they're called to be because they can just make their sacrifices. This is now, I would argue, the same thing that prophets have been telling the people for hundreds of years. The temple is holding you back. And if you think that you can just come here and make your sacrifices and then not live a changed life, you're missing the point. And Jesus comes to them and says, this temple is holding you back, so I will not have it. And we know the temple will be destroyed. We know that. But their sign for that was they saw that when Jesus says something is going to be destroyed because it's holding us back, like the fig tree, we know his will be done. And so I think the thing we want to think for ourselves is, what's holding us back today? What's holding you back from being the person you're called to be? Jesus doesn't want things in your life that aren't feeding you and aren't bringing you closer to being that person you're called to be. And so whether that thing that's holding you back is fear or envy or pride or any of those deadly sins, right? Look into your life in this holy week, in this season, in this week where we walk with Jesus, and realize he doesn't want the things in your life that are holding you back from being the person you're called to be. And he wants to clear those things out of the way so that you can fully live into it. He wants you fed. He wants you restored. He wants the obstacles out of your path. And he will not stop until we get there. Amen.